No, I found out through a text message from my sister, who just said, "Oh, you're going to have a good day." And I was like, "What are you talking about?"
She obviously wasn't on Optus.
No, she was not on Optus.
Is that how it should roll?
Look, I think the key thing for organisations like mine, whose job is to help by providing information, knowing as much as we can always helps. But what we saw yesterday, so many consumers contacting us, not on using the Optus network, obviously, because they didn't know what was going on. And that seemed very, reflective of what we saw when there was a data breach last year. The not knowing causes so much anxiety for people.
We'll get to the broader issues in a sec, but how would you sum up the way the company responded, especially in the first critical, say, 4 or 5 hours yesterday to this crisis?
I think there were some real challenges. Obviously a lot of the execs and things like that were on the Optus network, so they weren't reaching out. But I think the challenge that we see is people want to know what's going on. Even if you can't give them an answer, they want to know how long they're expected to be off.
Did Optus drop the ball on that front?
Look, I think there's definitely opportunities to improve there because customers need certainty. Small businesses to plan their day. Do they open? Don't they open? How are they going to try and keep things moving?
They went through this a year ago. They said they were going to be open and transparent. They did a review. We didn't learn what was in that review. So really, when you say, well, they could have done better, they've been through it before.
Yeah, look, ideally we wouldn't be seeing the same sort of communication issues again, as you said, just over 12 months after the data breach.
So you deal with the fallout. How would you describe the tenor of most communications with your office yesterday? There were lots of understandably very angry and frustrated Optus customers out there, Cynthia.
Yeah, look, I think frustrated is one word for what we were starting to see. There was obviously people that were inconvenienced. My 15-year-old son thought it was the end of the world when he couldn't use his phone. But when you think more broadly, the impacts on emergency services, hospitals, things like that, they are impacts that hopefully haven't been life-changing for people, but they're very wide-ranging. I think the challenge that we see is over the coming days as, particularly small businesses try to work through what has the impact been for them on their business or loss of business for the day.
What's your advice to people watching you this morning who were affected yesterday?
Look, particularly for the small business community, what we would encourage you to do is contact Optus and help them understand what the impact was on them and their earnings, for example. If your average Wednesday you earned X and yesterday you earned less than half of X, that's the sort of thing that we think you need to tell Optus so they get a sense of what sort of compensation might be the right thing to do for your circumstance, which is very different to my 15-year-old son.
They're suggesting, though, that there won't be refunds, that it's going to be rewards for those people who show loyalty and stick with the company. Is that good enough?
Look, I don't know that that's going to cut the mustard for every small business, every consumer that they've got, and we would really be asking them to think of what's the fair and reasonable thing to do in different circumstances. A blanket rule isn't going to be good enough given the various impacts it's had on individual consumers, but also particularly small businesses.
Could you quantify, put a number on the number of complaints your body received yesterday?
Well, yesterday's hardly going to be our peak because most of the day people couldn't use.
Of course. But there are other ways people can get in touch. Yeah,
look, we did have social media contact, people using other people's phones and emails and things like that. We're really expecting yesterday was the bottom. It's going to continue to increase over coming days, and so much of it turns on how well Optus respond from here on in because we'll always encourage people to speak to Optus first, but they've got to be able to get through and they've got to get a reasonable response.
How is your 15-year-old son? Is he okay now? The services are back?
Yeah, much improved disposition, I think is what we'll call it.
Can I just ask you on the broader issues about whether Australians can be confident about the telecommunications industry, the stability, the reliability of it? Lots of debate this morning about whether there should be the emergency roaming. What are your thoughts about that?
Look, I think yesterday really highlighted for us how essential phone and internet is. We sort of almost take it for granted that it's always going to be there and we're going to be able to rely on it. Look, I would like to see an increased recognition of the essentiality of phone and internet services. There's obviously the infrastructure questions that need to be answered, but I think, the responsiveness and the ability to ensure that people don't go without an essential service is something that's going to require further examination.
So what does that mean, to sort of acknowledge it, and what does that mean?
Look, I think we'll need to look at what the options are for quicker and it's not technically feasible to just switch from one network to another, but I think what we'd like to see is, greater focus on getting people back online more quickly. 12 hours is a long time in today's society for businesses and consumers to not have access to an essential service. And
unacceptable?
I think that you could call it unacceptable because there could be significant real life impacts for people who couldn't contact emergency services, and that's a significant concern.
Well, let's go to real life impacts. We're asking our viewers to give us their experiences yesterday. Undoubtedly, a lot will marry with what your office is getting. This has just come in from Kerry. Thank you, Kerry. Regarding the Optus outage yesterday, this had a profound impact for myself and my 94-year-old mother, who was in a rehabilitation facility with COVID, and her care facility was not able to be contacted as they are on the Optus network. I finally managed to track down a Telstra mobile number to speak with her. She was very distraught and confused about the situation. I mean, that's just not on.
Yeah, look, I mean, that is a great example of, we can talk about it in abstract. It's really easy to keep it as an abstract, the reliability of the network and things like that. But that's the human impact. And, I was talking earlier with somebody who was recounting the difficulties within a hospital of not being able to get patients picked up because you couldn't actually make an outbound call, post-surgery or post an appointment. That's not what we expect in today's society.
Cynthia, thanks for coming in. We may be speaking to you more about this, I suspect.
So much for those Christmas holidays, Cynthia.
Yeah, it was a nice idea, wasn't it?
It was.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.